Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Wind Down.
Wind down.
We've made it. We've arrived. And we're gonna drink some wine. And Hillary's pouring today.
Very
Damn it.
awkwardly,
Just
but it's happening.
No, it's better than. That's why I have to talk about it. I have to say this is uncomfortable for me because it helps for some reason. Okay. Cheers.
Cheers.
Happy Friday, everyone. All right.
Let's get to it.
Yeah, now I feel ready to talk. You know what I mean? I'm ready to really dive into some different topics. Today, we're going to talk about 7 valuable money personal finance lessons for your child, which obviously this is close to home for us.
Yep.
And I thought some of these they raised some good points.
Agreed.
This is from the Economic Times. And the first one, fun doesn't always have to be funded.
Yeah, I really liked this.
Me too.
And I think it's interesting. I was having a conversation with an older colleague a couple months ago. I was just talking about how stressed and how we had like 8 different activities that weekend.
Yeah.
And she just was like, just so you know, those activities are for you at this point. Your kid probably won't remember them. And
Yeah.
it's a way to keep her busy, which is fine. And
Right.
if that's what you're doing, like, great.
Yeah.
But you don't really need to spend money with your kids right now
Right.
in order to make memories and give them learning experiences and do all the things.
Totally.
And so not that I've necessarily taken that to heart, but it is something that I do try to remember when we're trying to schedule things, we're trying to do things, do different activities. Like, do we really need to do this?
Right. Like when you can like go for a walk to the park.
Right.
And like kids love it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge thing that we do is we just go to she's big into the swings now. So we just go to the park and go to the swings.
Right.
But then it's like we have this really amazing zoo in like our town.
Yeah.
And I think Tam and I always want to take her, you know,
Right.
we're like, oh, it'll be so fun. But it's true. It is a little bit more for Tam and I.
Right.
And like watching her reaction as a
Yes.
1-year-old to things is fun, but she's
Right.
not going to remember any of that.
And I think that taking kids to the zoo is awesome, especially if you have a local one and trying to become a member.
Yeah.
We have done that at a couple different museums, and it is, yes, it's more about not necessarily going to them, but providing just a place to do something different instead of the monotony.
Change of scenery.
Change of scenery. I think this kind of hits home for me. One, when you're trying to plan play dates with other families,
Totally, yeah.
you don't necessarily need to go to the museum because you already have some baked in fun there, or the zoo. Like just going over to somebody else's house is so exciting for a kid.
Right.
Like
it's true.
It's so having fun without spending money is super easy.
When we talked about this on the Wind Down when we were focusing on birthday parties.
Yes.
And the cost of birthday parties.
Yes.
And I was touching on like growing up, my mom was very hands-on in just creating the things that we did.
Right.
We would have the party typically at home, and she would, build me a lavish little like party hat, and then she'd create games like Pin the Tail on the Donkey and stuff like that you can just make at home.
Right.
And I don't feel like, if anything, like I have such amazing, nostalgic, warm, fuzzy memories of that time. I don't feel like I was missing something because I wasn't at Chuck E. Cheese or whatever.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
And and I think it's about teaching your kid that some of my best hangouts with my friends are not when we're spending money.
Yep.
It's just
There's a lesson in there.
there's a walk. Doesn't cost any money. It's a hike. It's just hanging out is sometimes the best thing.
Playing games, and
board
like,
games.
Yeah, board games. Hello. It's so funny. It's like I feel like we don't think to play them as much now, but when you do, you're like, wait, this is really fun.
Yeah. I was playing bingo with my 4-year-old just the other day, and it was like awesome.
Yeah.
I was like, bingo's fun, even though I'm not 4.
But it takes you back,
Right?
doesn't
It does take you back.
All right, the next one is not every task has to be a ritual. Now, honestly, I was a little confused by this at first. I think, the example I think they gave was that, say you have people coming over. you don't necessarily have to spend all of this money and have all of this food and have a gift ready. And, like it can be as simple as just an exchange of time together with somebody.
Yeah.
So maybe it's the ritual of, spending and preparation for things that might not be necessary, might teach your kids a lesson as well. I'm the worst at this.
Right.
And my husband and I are the worst. Like when we have friends coming over, it is a whole ordeal. We are at the store, we are, it's like...
Plan the menu, got the drinks, have everything ready.
Oh my gosh, it's a whole thing. Yeah. And I didn't think about what that, tells our children.
Right.
But I actually always thought that was just being, polite. But I know that my friends wouldn't really, I don't think that they would think any less of me if I didn't have a feast prepared for them when they came over.
Totally. And I think, it's something, especially these days, having people over is such a event because we haven't had a chance to socialize as much.
I do think it is
so
enhanced
I think that there's that.
For sure. Yeah.
I think on the other side of this, I actually took away, I picked up on that as well, but one of the other things that I picked up on was everyday things don't necessarily need to be rewarded with like a treat or with like something else for your kids. So you don't necessarily have to, they do great on a spelling test. That's awesome. Doesn't mean that they get a new video game. Maybe you just give them high praise or, ask them how they feel about their grade and how do they feel, and getting them to instill that confidence themselves versus having it come from outside rewards.
Right. I know words of affirmation are very powerful.
Yes.
And sometimes I think we forget that in this like consumer world that we live in.
Exactly.
When gifts are literally at our doorstep in,
in a
20,
day.
Yeah, in a day.
Exactly. Sometimes day of.
And I'm guilty of this because I'll say to my husband, I'm like, it was only $12, or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
The next one, do not attach a cost to routine activities. So it's what you were saying.
Yeah.
It's along the lines of, if someone's, what about the tooth fairy?
That's still special. Like your teeth don't fall out all the time, forever and ever. It's a set amount of teeth. There's a lot of debate, I feel like, among parents about how much you give.
I think kids have this discussion with each other once they grow up. And they're like, there's like always that kid that was like, oh, I got like $20, or whatever. And you're like, you got what?
Exactly. I'm like, I got a quarter?
A quarter, I know.
Like the first one was like I think a silver dollar, which was like, it's your first one, so it's exciting.
Yes. The only thing I wondered about this, because I always thought, like with chores or having an allowance, that's also a way of teaching your kid personal finance from a young age, and talking about, well, what are we going to do with this money that you're making? And I remember I had a small allowance or something, and I would get that allowance from chores that I would do. So it was like I was learning you work for money.
Right.
And then we went to
always.
And then after like enough had been accumulated, I remember going to our local bank and opening a bank account and bringing in rolls of coins. And it was a good learning experience. So I feel like maybe in moderation.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot to learn as well from, that sort of financial reward for doing tasks and, what you do with that money as well.
Yeah. And I think teaching your kids, if you are giving them an allowance, or especially if it is associated with chores, like teaching them, what do you do with the money after you've gotten it? Like, how do you want to spend it? Put some into savings. So there are, and I've heard this, I haven't implemented it yet, but there's parents who do the spend, save, invest, give.
Okay.
And it's 25% to each of those. So you teach your kid that 25% of their allowance they can spend. Now they can save it, but they can spend it. 25% should go into their savings. 25% they should invest, and you can kind of open up either a brokerage account or, there's a couple different ways you can do that.
Oh, this is advanced.
And
then
this. They get to give or donate 25%. So teaching them,
brilliant.
Teaching them how giving to others really helps, humanity, themselves in the long run.
Yeah. Wow. I think that covers a lot
Yeah.
of bases, you know, like you really get to have a lot of important conversations about a lot of different areas of finance by doing that.
Yeah.
That's
And there's even like little piggy banks that you can get so that it portions out the money for them. So it's,
yeah.
and opening up an actual account at a bank, I think, is a really fun ritual to have with your child if you're able to do that.
Oh, I remember feeling really cool.
Yeah.
It's like,
I still
I
bank
like
at
brought
the
a little
same bank
purse.
that I've had since I was like 5.
wow.
Yeah.
That is so cool. I don't know if my bank exists anywhere else other than in Owasso, Michigan, but you know. All right, the next tip is don't let others undermine your upper hand. I feel like every parent can relate to this. It's a delicate little dance that all parents do with family and friends. So when you're trying to establish, you know, financial boundaries like the ones listed here, we have to be open in communicating what those are with family members, because I think there's also this mentality of like, I can't wait to be a grandparent so I can spoil the kids, right?
Totally.
And so it's just finding that like respect of, okay, in this regard, we really want to like teach these specific financial values.
Right.
And please
adhere to them.
Please adhere to them.
Give them all the candy, fine. Ice cream, fine. But please help us with the other parts. Thank you.
Exactly.
Well, and I think this is something that we have tried to do, especially recently. We had Christmas a couple months ago. My daughter's birthday was just recently. And in those months leading up to it, it was anytime she would ask for something, we would be like, well, you can ask for that for Christmas. You can ask for that for your birthday. And even just this past week, you know, when she got so much for her birthday, she was like, Mama, can I have this? And I was like, well, you can ask for that for Christmas.
She's like, isn't that?
And she's like, you know, doesn't really have a concept of how far away that is. And she will probably...
That's the beauty.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, and I think it
She'll have moved on to something else.
Exactly.
Anyway.
And I think it kind of goes on to one of the other points that they make is teaching how you don't always get it all. And having to put those choices in front of your child. And it doesn't always necessarily have to be with toys, but you can give them a choice.
Between
two things, and you can't necessarily get to do both. Like, you don't get to go out to dinner and to the movies.
Yeah.
You might get to do one.
You can't have a puppy surprise and a Tamagotchi.
Right. I think this is touching on a deep nerve.
Those were the two things I wanted more than anything, you know what I mean? And then you end up getting a puzzle and some shoes, and you're like, that's not what I asked for.
I think that's a different show altogether that we're gonna have to go deeper into.
You think I would have grown out of it by now? Thank God Hillary informed me on Coffee with Kem Hills that Tamagotchis are coming back, so maybe I can fulfill my lifelong want. But now I know I can only have one or the other.
Yes,
so
you do not get both.
I do not get both. Yep. Okay, I liked the let your child make small decisions.
Yes.
Like incorporating them in, like, say you go shopping and you're like, hey, we need to get, you know, this many strawberries. Can you go pick out, you know, and just and make them, you know, an active participant in the activities that do require spending.
Right.
You know, so they're going to understand the value more, and they're going to take that with them as they get older, because they're going to be considering how it works and why only 5, and just paying attention to, like, if we're picking between 2 brands, which one would you pick? And then let's look at the prices, you know, and just having those very open conversations. There's so much to, like,
there's a way to
explore.
work all
They're
these
little sponges, I'm telling you.
Man, yeah. And there's so many ways to easily, like, have these conversations with your children in everyday conversations. Like, it doesn't have to be a special sit down, like, let's talk about money. It is...
Because that's boring to kids. They're like, ah! It's true. Oh, and eliminate bribes and gifts born out of guilt.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I feel like this is such a real thing.
Yes.
Parents go away on vacation. They feel guilty. Parents are working a lot. They feel guilty. Parents overreacted, maybe got a little angry, maybe raised their voice. They feel guilty. And sometimes what we do in response to that guilt is we offer a gift.
Right.
Say, here, I want some ice cream.
Yeah. I mean, I am certainly guilty of this, unfortunately. There was one time I was on a business trip and I wanted to go to the Disney store to get my daughter something. The line was too long because they were only allowing so many people in because of COVID. And so I went to a different store and got her socks. And I was like, she doesn't care about socks. But I felt better about my purchase and felt better about being home, like coming home with something.
Right.
And then, I mean, she does wear them. She loves them, but like was super unnecessary. And
Yeah.
for things like that, yes, there's like nice things to do, special occasions. But really, just
Again, it's
because.
Like just quality time, conversation,
Yeah.
words of affirmation. Like there's so much that can be done without like offering, things that cost money. It's I feel like it's becoming an obsession in today's world a little bit. Like I'm definitely guilty of it. It's just such easy access as well.
Yep, agreed.
Yep. Well, on that note, we are going to take a quick commercial break, but we will be right back because we have more to say with our big old glasses of wine. Welcome back, everyone. All right, we're going to talk about an article from Kiplinger. I like saying Kiplinger. Why the sandwich generation just got worse for women. And we talked about this before, neither of us had actually heard of it.
Had never heard of this term, sandwich generation.
I thought it was literally about like sandwiches, like mom's packing lunch. And I was like, where's this going? I don't know if I've gotten there yet with my daughter. She's not like eating sandwich. I mean, kind of peanut butter and jelly a little bit.
And I thought it was more of like a reference to like, there's the latchkey generation. So I thought it was like, kids who are growing up this way.
I'm glad that we were
like
both
eating
confused.
sandwiches.
But after reading it,
Yes.
I think it all made sense.
Right.
And it's circling back to the same thing that we talk about. It's just the amount of responsibilities, the many, many hats that women wear.
Yes.
I mean, we talked about that this week
Yep.
on the morning show. And the reason they call it the sandwich generation is because often women find themselves in the position of becoming caretaker of children, especially right now. There's so many children moving home or that had moved home
Yes.
during the pandemic, like adult children that, lost their jobs, couldn't pay the rent, and they're like, hi, Mom, hi, Dad, I'm back.
Right.
So they're taking on that responsibility. And on
Right.
top of that, the responsibility of, parents or in-laws as well.
That are older, and so you're taking care of them as well.
Yes. And ding, ding. We have sound effects. So yeah, it talks about the financial strain that takes on women, because oftentimes if you were working prior, it's very hard to maintain a career and physically take care of your children and your parents. Yet it's a double-edged sword because you need more money to take care of more people.
Right. Yeah. And so you're stuck between two pieces of bread.
Yeah.
Or a rock in a hard place, as you would. And, you want to be able to take care of both, but you're sandwiched in between them and are having a hard time figuring out how to do it all.
Ooh, that's a tricky. They didn't give a percentage as to like how many. I'm curious how many women have found themselves in this.
I think a lot of, I don't know. Anecdotally, I feel like a lot of women do.
Yeah.
And it might not.
When this situation happens, it more often than not falls on the shoulders of the.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But they did give some tips on how to try and alleviate some of that stress.
That's right.
And some of them were more helpful than others, I'm not going to lie.
Take a deep breath. What more is there to say about that? I mean, hey, all of us moms, we gave birth. We know that breathing is important, right?
Exactly.
Breath can do a lot.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always situation.
But it doesn't always do everything you need it to.
No, it definitely doesn't. Does not. But with that, they're saying, you know, maybe schedule a walk with someone outside of that family unit, like a friend, like get out of the house and, you know, just be able to like spend some time to get your head out of like the stressors that are at home and maybe, you know, be able to talk to somebody else about, for me, I mean, I find sometimes like I can get overwhelmed with everything that's happening in life at home. And then I'll just have a conversation with a friend and they'll be talking to me about what's happening in their life.
Yeah.
And I'm not, you know, venting all of the stresses that I might be feeling, but it actually takes me out of my head for a while. And I find that to be almost more therapeutic than continuing, you know, the spiral of like my own stuff. Yeah. And just like removing yourself, you know, and just giving yourself a second, you know, away from it all.
And, you know, being able to have a friendship with somebody who you can share what's going on in your life and then also, and so they can take some of that burden off of you just because you get to talk to somebody about it. And then being able to be there for somebody else in the same way, also it almost alleviates more of that stress because you do get out of your own head and you're like, what can this person do? Like, how can I help them, or like how can I help them help themselves, you know, like I totally agree with you having those conversations.
It's kind of like reverse therapy or something. I don't know, it's weird, but I noticed that really helping me the other day. I was like, oh gosh, I had a friend that were like, I'm sorry, I just like unloaded all of that, and I was like, honestly, I just feel so much better. So thank you. Have the talks. Okay, well, that sounds very vague.
So this one talked about sharing responsibility. Yeah. So when you were feeling overwhelmed and, you know, especially whether it's adult children or maybe it's with your partner or significant other, I can't take on cleaning the house this week or the next week or the week after that. I need you guys to divvy this up so that you guys can take that off of my plate because I'm dealing with grandma, I'm dealing with, you know, all the other plus I have my own job. Like, this is something where you need to help share in the responsibility of the house.
I mean, they even said just because of the financial strain, like maybe one of those adult children like might have to take on a job that they're not thrilled to be taking on to sort of help support the family unit, you know, during these times. And I think that's sometimes it's hard. It's hard for women to ask for help.
For sure.
Because we want to take care of, but it's going to help everyone in the long run. If you're like, hey, you're doing the dishes from now on, okay?
Exactly.
It's okay.
Right.
Everyone will still love you. We all have to remember this. It's all going to be okay. Craft a family budget. Well, we talk about that all the time, don't we?
A working family budget that you can actually stick to. And getting in input, you know, from all the different facets of your life, especially if you are sandwiched between taking care of your parents as well as your kids. There's a lot of other financial responsibilities possibly. So making sure that you're actually putting those in there so they're line items and you're able to track them and make sure that you're able to balance everything out.
This like directly relates to the article that we were talking about yesterday on the morning show. And it's getting that, like women, getting that financial planner to help you figure out these complicated situations. That is going to help so much.
Exactly.
And seek help. And that's what that is.
Yeah.
Hey! Seek help. Go to that financial professional and let them look at the chaos of, you know, what it is, and they are going to organize it in a way that is going to just alleviate all of that stress, because you'll say, okay, I have a plan now. I have a plan of action. And if I do this, we're going to be okay.
Right.
And that's all we want, right? We just want to know we're going to be okay. Because living in the gray area...
Oh, it's so tough.
No, it's not. It's not where we want to be.
Nope. Exactly.
All right. Well, I think that's it.
Yeah.
For another episode of The Wind Down.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Enjoy that glass of wine.